Welcome to Straight Talk for Entrepreneurs, where we reveal what it really takes to build a successful business. Whether you are starting with an idea or growing your business, this is the show for you. My guests and I will show you how to build a strong mindset, a powerful body, a profitable business. Hi, I'm Brandon C. White, and this is Build a Business Success Secrets.
There's Brandon.
Right on, man. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Gosh, you'd ride around in my truck so often. I hear you all the time. Now I get to actually interact with you. It's so cool.
Well, I appreciate that. I didn't know you were a listener.
God, of course I listen.
Right on. Well,
pay attention.
Well, cool. How's Oregon today?
It's awesome. Yeah, it's decent temperature. I just heard something really, really interesting. And being down in California, I had somebody in Utah I was just talking to, and he said, "I'm in Utah. It's a eastern suburb of California." And so I'm going to start saying it. I'm going to say I'm up in Oregon, the northern suburb of California.
Well, don't blame us if people start coming to your town.
I try to tell them we're full, but they just keep coming.
They do. I heard they're exiting, but they're also coming to the coast apparently. So I don't know. Oregon's a good spot though. You guys got good weather.
Yes, but I don't want you guys to know that.
Yeah, well, no, I will say beautiful. This. I spent a lot of time on a project in Eugene.
Oh.
And when it was nice, it was nice. And when it wasn't, it wasn't.
For real. Yeah. It gets nasty probably about October. And then about July, it gets really beautiful. July, August, September, great time to be in the valley. After that, not so much.
Well, the fly shop there has a tap that opens at 4. So it was right there off of Main Street. So and when it wasn't nice outside, there was a place to go.
There you are. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining. You know, I've been excited because you have a really, I'd say, I was riding the Peloton today. I was like, is it interesting? Is it unique? It just sort of happened. And you've had such a diverse background going from, I want everybody to hear how you went from being a dive instructor and how you wind up that. And then you found this company that I have right here, HydroFlask, somehow in your spare bedroom effectively. And that's a great inspiration for people out there. So can we go back to like the beginning? Because I know you have an interesting story too about somehow your mom had a vineyard.
Oh, well, kind of yes and no. My mom and dad owned the land that was to become Willamette Valley Vineyards. They were 3 owners prior to what it is today, which is Willamette Valley Vineyards. So my grandpa had purchased the land as a sort of a wedding gift to my parents. And however, they got divorced pretty quickly thereafter. And when my dad took off, my grandpa sold it to a woman who said she was going to put in a vineyard. And they said, no. There's no vineyards in Oregon. Grapes only grow in France, not Oregon, France. And I don't know if it's true or not, but the story goes that they pretty much laughed her right into the loony bin. I don't know if that's a PC way to say it these days, but you get the gist of what I'm saying, the insane asylum or whatever. She then sold it off to the people who took off and started Willamette Valley Vineyards. Yeah.
That's incredible. And what do you think that's the first winery in Oregon?
I would say, I don't know if it's the very first, but I would say, as far as I know, as being an Oregonian, it's definitely the first that was on the map. There might've been a little bit smaller ones here and there, but it was definitely the first that had a full blown, just awesome tasting room and swag to sell. Merch.
So they go from, because we can't grow grapes in America.
No, right. Only France can. We all know that.
Yeah, of course. So then what happens after that? You like your mom sells it, but you're still in Oregon.
Yep. So my mom and I stayed in Oregon. She got remarried to a Vietnam vet who had PTSD, Agent Orange exposure. Not one of the most friendly of souls at that time anyway. And, had two brothers. I had my two brothers, and then my mom having three boys. She always wanted a daughter, so she took off to Romania and to go to the orphanages to go adopt my sister. Well, she didn't quite make it to the orphanage. She found a Romanian gypsy right there near where she was staying and adopted my sister. So there were four of us in my mom's house, and times were tough. I mean, we got by, but I definitely learned to hustle at a very young age and buy my own Air Jordans. Yeah.
How'd you do that? Were you selling lemonade?
I was just thinking about this the other day, and the story I haven't really told before, but I figure like the statute of limitations is up, so I can kind of tell some of these stories. The first kind of hustle that I had was I got held back in first grade because I started first grade too early, and they changed the law from September to October 5 to 6 or whatever the numbers were. So I did a fun run the first year of first grade, and I kind of got the hang of it. I don't really like running. This sucks. I don't really care about making money for the school. I'm not really into it. The second time I was in first grade, there was a fun run in the fall, and I was like, okay, I got the hang of it. I know what to do. So we lived on a hill. The governor lived at the top, the governor's mansion. Down here at the bottom was the homeless people, the train tracks, but it was flat, and we lived right in the middle. So I went down the hill on the flat area and walked trying to collect money from the fun run. I didn't do very well because nobody down the flat area had any money. Go back, and we'll call him Little Johnny because his name is John. Little Johnny lived at the top of the hill, and he like cleaned up. He won the pizza party. He won all the ice cream. And so I was like, okay, well, he lives up in the rich neighborhood. I was down the poor neighborhood. And so in the spring of my first grade, as soon as we got the form that it's fun run time, and I put air quotes around fun because it was never fun, I went straight up to Little Johnny's next door neighbor and hit her up before Johnny could get there. And I kind of worked my way out of that one house. Like literally, I used his house as like the pivot point for everybody else. And he still won. And the way he won was he had his dad write a check. And that's how he came up with the most money. So I'm like, fucker, I'm sorry, my language. He cheated. So
we like to keep it real here.
Sorry. So the next fun run, I was like, all right, I don't really care about the school because no matter what I do, Johnny's going to take it. So I did the same thing though. I went right up to the next door neighbor's house and I said, hey, look, I think what you should do is sponsor me per lap instead of a flat fee. She says, well, how many laps are you going to do? I said, I don't know. Look at me. I don't really run, maybe 5 or 6. I don't know. I just kind of trot. And she goes, well, okay, how about, $2 a lap or whatever the number was. So, okay, cool. So I go from door to door, just doing this plan of, just pay per lap and we should be okay because I'm not going to really run. So fun run comes and I'm not having fun and I'm not running. And they entrusted me to write down how many laps I had done to go out and collect. And so what I did is I made a copy of it. And on the one from the school, I wrote down 5 or whatever it was. But the one that I took out to the rest of the world to go collect my money, I put like 25 or whatever the number was. And I collected all of that money for myself and gave the school based on what the number was on the original one. And so little Johnny won, he got the pizza, he got the ice cream, but I got the Air Jordans. And so I think,
Mary, you got the prize.
I got the prize. And again, it's only because the statute of limitations is up. And since then, my karma has come back. I've had millions of dollars stolen from me over the years. And so, it all came around, but that kind of was my first sort of hustle was the fun run. We'd get candy bars for Little League and they were 50 cents and I'd sell them for $1 and keep half the money.
Well, that was smart because you're smarter than I, because I ate all those and I picked the ones that had the most almonds.
I did love those almond ones. Gosh, those were the best.
I would feel the bottom of those things and I was like, oh, this thing's got 3. They probably all had the same amount, right? Because they were hidden, but I always wanted, I don't know how that worked. My poor mother, but they were good.
Back when chocolate was chocolate, right? Like that's what it tasted good. Yeah. It's not the plastic wax that it is today.
No, I'm a big chocolate fanatic.
Have you had a Cadbury egg lately?
No,
shite. It's awful, terrible. Oh. We had one yesterday, my daughter and I hated it. She loved it, but she's 4. She doesn't know what it was like back in 1980. You know?
Yeah, like things were, I feel like, I don't know about you, Travis, but it's like one of those things where you say, oh, back when we were kids. But you know what? I don't really care, because the truth is, back when we were kids, the food was real, right? Things were, I don't know. It just seemed.
The play was healthy and outdoors.
Yeah.
Right. The adventures. Yeah. Adventures.
What was that?
I just was thinking adventures as you were talking about riding your bike. Yeah.
Yeah. Like go out and build a jump. Yeah. I don't know, man. It was different.
Pre-helmet too. There was no helmets back then.
No, I actually feel bad. I gave my brother once a bike that really, we used to take them apart and put them together. And I was like, oh, it's fine. Rode it down the hill and broke his arm. But
statute limitations.
Oh, I've always felt bad about that. I was like, Mom, my little brother broke his arm, but he healed and he's fine. He's still as mouthy as he was. So, what are you going to do? So you figure out that you can make a profit is basically what really happened. So then what?
So then my grandpa came knocking on the door when I was 14, and he said, hey, do you want to meet your dad? He's down in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And I was like, yeah.
How old are you?
Right now I'm 42.
No. Wait.
Oh, back then 14.
So like your grandfather, you're 14 years old, and he says, do you want to meet your dad? What are you thinking at that moment?
If I have an opportunity to get out of Salem in the wintertime, yes, please. Yeah.
Fair answer.
I had no idea. I thought I was going off to a completely foreign world. And in a lot of sense I was. I mean, I really honestly was. And this was way pre 9/11. So you could put a kid on the airplane and just send him off into the unknown. Ended up in St. Croix and met my dad, and he had scuba diving shops. So I was like, okay, here we are in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Well, had you ever flown before?
When I was 12, as soon as my mom got divorced from my stepdad, I took off I sold everything I had. I had a TV and a bike, and I sold them both, made $99, bought a round trip ticket to Phoenix, went down to visit some long lost, far off, unknown cousin or second aunt or whatever it was. And I remember very vividly coming back on that flight at 12 years old. And there's this really attractive flight attendant who came and sat on my armrest and just chatted with me. I remember looking at her going, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this more.
Fly more, become a flight attendant.
Mm-hmm. Well, I then became a pilot so much. Yeah.
Well, I want to hear about that. But I have to say, I think that flight attendants were nicer back then.
I think so too.
That's not a commendation to anybody listening out there that I don't like flight attendants. It's just that when I flew a lot, they were mean.
Yeah.
For the most part. Well, maybe not for the most part.
Kurt,
maybe you just remember the bad. Maybe you remember the bad ones. Right? I don't know.
Kind of like any business, really. You know, you always remember the negative experiences.
You do. That's true. You remember I find that, like, I get an email every once in a while on back from the email list of just mean. And what do they say? Hurt people. Yes,
right. Yeah.
Hurt people.
It's not always easy to remember that though when you get those emails, is it, Brandon?
No, I get them and I'm like, am I even doing anything helping people?
Yeah.
Right. But I think, yeah, you got to fight through that. I learned that lesson, but back to the Virgin Islands. So the difference between Oregon and the Virgin Islands is basically night and day. Do you decide to stay there?
I did. However, I was held back for school. They said that I had to go home and go to school. So I'd go down I'm getting major feedback. Are we okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, cool. Um, yeah, I basically took off and every summer, Thanksgiving holidays, Christmas break, spring break, I'd go back down to the Virgin Islands. And then when I was 16, I moved down and I was like, okay, I'm here. I'm just going to go to the private school. Everything's good. I took the placement test for the private school and they said, no, you don't know math at all. And we're going to have to hold you back a year. And I'd already been held back once. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to be held back twice. So I returned to Oregon. I graduated on a Thursday, Monday morning. I was on my way back down to the VI.
Oh, cool. Is our sound okay now?
I'm still getting feedback, but I don't know.
Well, you can't talk like that.
It's okay. It's just a little distracting, but as long as it's working.
Oh, it's working, but I should be going through my mic. I don't know if that's on your end or my end. I got Rodecaster Pro. I don't know. If it gets real bad, we can reconnect. It could be Zoom.
Okay. Actually, that's better. I'm good now. I'm good.
Oh, okay. Right on.
Good or yeah.
I'm good. Yeah. All right. So you go to the Virgin Islands and what do you decide to do? Or did you have a plan or what?
Well, my dad owned, I think it was one dive shop or two. He ended up with like 3 or 4 and a grocery store. And it was extremely exciting because I'd never really been in. I would like the joke was that it wasn't a third world country. It wasn't even that good. So we were only 2.5 world country. And I'd never really been in that situation before. The first time I ever got shot at, I was in 14 years old on that first trip or second trip. And
you got shot?
Did not get shot. And
why were they shooting at you?
Because well, the best I could tell, he says, we were coming down into Christiansted and there's a little bit of a bottleneck into the main town. And I was with some tourists in a rental Jeep and we come in and we stop at the bottleneck. I look over and this guy hops up and goes, "Hey, white boy, pop, pop, pop." Oh, and luckily the guy driving had the I don't know, the presence, I guess, to get out of traffic, go around and bypass and get us out of there. And it was exhilarating. It happened so quick too. I don't think there was really time to go, oh, we're dead. We didn't have that, but we took off to a fast food chain and had dinner and we were kind of shook up. And then as we were pulling out of the parking lot, he hit a pylon. And when we hit that pylon, I was in the back. I was like, oh, they're here to shoot us again. And that's when I got really nervous. I was really scared. All 3 of us just like stopped and like, oh shoot, they just hit us. Now we're going to get shot. And we looked back and it's just a pylon. Cool. And that's kind of how the VI went. The dive shop would get broken into quite often. And we finally got an alarm. And so every time the alarm would go off, we'd grab the artillery and head down towards the action. And I put some hair on my chest, I guess.
Yeah. I think when you see your life pass before you, you get perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was the first time. And it seems like it happened quite often, whether I was on the boats and I thankfully nobody ever on my watch ever died, but I would have people on other watches, other dive trips or other dive boats or parasail boats that had died, and we'd have to show up at that scene. And being around death like that, it really made me realize that you got to live while you can live, and because you never know when you're going to be on vacation and die. So, yeah.
So do you think that you learned things about retail that you later carried forward?
Absolutely. I think one of the first things I ever really learned was I remember very vividly being in the gift shop one day, and my dad's colorblind, and I opened up a box of t-shirts. I was like, "Dad, this is the most ugly, disgusting color shirt ever." I said, I can't believe you'd buy these shirts. Like, please let somebody else be in charge of purchasing. This is not a good shirt. He says, no, that's the #1 bestseller. He says, the cruise ship passengers love them. I said, oh, get out of here. He goes, watch what happens. I said, all right. So we bet, a couple beers or whatever. Sure enough, the cruise ship passengers showed up. They bought him out, and we sold out of the ugliest shirt I could ever imagine. And he says, you see that? It's never about what you want. It's not about you. It's about what they want. You don't know what they want. They don't even actually know what they want, case in point. However, if that's what they're going to buy, that's what we're going to sell. Like, okay, well, I'm going to sell somebody something that they want and do it very well.
So that's really a lesson in listen to the data.
I like that. That's a good way to put it.
I mean, I'm a data guy, but it's really listen to your customer, right? Just, I mean, you never really do know until you make contact with the customer.
Right. And ask and listen.
Yeah. So were you doing you were doing dives, like out on the boat, taking people diving?
Yes, I started out when I was 18. After I graduated high school, I started out as a dive master. And then I went to St. Thomas, Belongo Bay Resort and became a dive instructor. Patty, 158190 is my number. And then did that for quite a while in St. Croix at Cane Bay Dive Shop. And then went over to St. Thomas, where I moved into Sapphire Beach Resort and worked in St. John at Bob and Anne Marie's Low Key Dive Shop. And then I eventually got my 50-ton. Well, I started out with a 6-pack and then a 25-ton. And then I moved up to a 50-ton U.S. Merchant Marine boat captain.
So you go from dive master to boat captain.
Which is a very natural progression. Like it kind of caps out being a dive instructor at how many students you can have and how much money you can actually make. And I really enjoyed reading business books. I still do, but I wanted to read more. And so being a boat captain, I couldn't listen to the radio. I couldn't, there's obviously no cell phones back in the olden days. And so I could read my books. And so I became a boat captain really so I could, hang out with the wives was part of it, but also read my books as well.
And what were you doing? Cargo?
No, passengers. Mainly I did a lot of scuba diving boats where I would, help them. We had a number of different boats. We had a rapid deployment SEAL team boat that was a semi-rigid inflatable. Did that and a little bit bigger dive boats with Bob and Anne Marie over at Low Key. Got onto a yacht and a 100-foot mega yacht, or I guess I don't know where mega yacht might start at 110 feet. So I may be false.
It's a big boat.
It's a big ass boat. Did a lot of ocean rafting, high speed, big, twin 550s on a semi-rigid inflatable with cruise ship passengers from St. Thomas. And we go down to the British Virgin Islands, just having all kinds of fun, going snorkeling and going to the Willie T, which is a real famous bar where if you jump off topless, you get a free t-shirt. It only applies to women. I never got a t-shirt. I thought you probably can't do that these days. Like that would be
that's a very big bias.
It is. And I would ask them all the time, like, I just jumped off topless. Where's my shirt? No, Travis, you can't get your shirt. You know that. I could probably sue. Probably should actually.
Well, in today's world, you can do all sorts of crazy things that I don't quite understand.
Yeah.
So
the Willie T has been sued for sexist t-shirt giving outing.
Are they going to sue for a t-shirt? Yeah. So how long do you do this boat captain thing?
I on and off, I say I was in the VI for on and off about 7 years. I left and became a pilot and then came back as a pilot and flew and captained and instructed and dive mastered kind of for 7 years.
What was your favorite business book that you read while you were being a captain?
I think The Millionaire Mind was kind of the one that this is cool. It kind of gave me a new perspective. The Millionaire Next Door was okay also, and some parts of that was better, but not maybe as good. But pretty much anything Brian Tracy. I think that he as an author back in those days was really spot on, and it really gave me a foundation and a business. That's where I got my business schooling, was from Brian Tracy.
What was the biggest lesson for you from that book?
Man, Brandon, asking the hard questions, aren't you? I would say take care of the customer and they'll come back. It's a lot less expensive. It's a lot easier to have a return customer than it is to get a new one.
Yeah, I think that's a great lesson. Did you just decide that, hey, I'm a boat captain, now I want to, did you fly a float plane down there?
I did. Yeah. I flew seaplanes. It did. It hit me in the back of the head. I just learned this word the other day, so I keep using it as my vocabulary word, cerebellum.
Oh,
Back in my, yeah, right. You didn't know that. I'm teaching you stuff here. Spitting knowledge. Hit my cerebellum. It came out, you're a pilot. And I was like, oh, fuck, I don't know what that means. And so I had literally just walked off of the yacht, and I walked away from a 6-figure job. And I had $11, maybe $12 in my pocket. And I moved to St. Thomas, found a place, got down to the laundry mat, took my clothes in because I needed to go get a job. So I needed to wash my clothes. And while my clothes were washing, I went next door to the grocery store to get my macaroni and cheese and gallon of water. And as I was checking out, there was a magazine, like piloting magazine. And it was one of those moments in my life. And it's happened a few times where the lights turn on, the cherubs come and sing, and there's harps and the pretty maidens dancing. And I went over and I picked it up, and I was like, I held it up like I'd found the Holy Grail. And I was like, look at this. It's a flying magazine. And none of the St. Thomians understood that I was holding the magic golden ticket right there. And so I had to put my macaroni and cheese back to afford it, but I bought the magazine. I went home, I drank my water, and I read through that magazine, and I knew right then and there, I'm a pilot. And this was about August of 2000. And I got, right then my great grandma died and her house was open. So I moved back. I had a free place to stay. Yada, yada, found out about student loans. And I was a pilot. September 5th, 2001 was like one of my first flights. September 11 happened. That put a massive damper on life. Moved over to Bend, Oregon, kept flying, and went down to Arizona and started flying out of there, getting multi-engine time and some jet time. Came back to Oregon. I flew skydivers, which was a lot of fun. Really dangerous, really scary, and man, did I love it.
Why is it dangerous?
The plane I flew, I had taken over the guy's job who had augured or crashed before. He was flying a bigger Caravan, which I really wanted to fly the Caravan, but he crashed the Caravan. So I got his job. And then the plane I was flying was just a really, it was like a death box. And I used to wear a parachute myself. And it was like an old ass military World War II, Vietnam era. I don't know what it was. It was old parachute. I'd strap that on going, dang, I really hope I don't have to wear this or use this today. And then after I left, the next guy crashed the plane that I was flying. So yeah, when you open up a door and let people come out, sometimes they'll hit the plane or their chutes will open, and if their chutes open, it hits the tail. And then you just auger. I mean, the whole thing just goes down. So you got to hopefully get yourself out. And if you can, there's not a lot of hope for the guy who hit the tail, but you just got to get as far away as possible. I loved it. I just loved it. It's just dancing with death 24/7. And I became certified, started skydiving at that time, but then I really wanted to go fly the seaplanes for the airlines, went down to the Seaborne Airlines, and just by, one question, I got in. The test was really difficult for me I'm a bit dyslexic when it comes to some of that, but.
So I call that a pivotal moment, by the way.
Which one?
Well, when you picked up that magazine and just knew, you just made a decision right there. Can't explain it. It just happens.
I remember the woman's face. The first woman I looked at, I was like, I didn't say it out loud because that would have been, too theatrical, but I was like, do you see this? And her face was like, what are you looking at me for, white boy? I was like, I was the only, and I thought, well, maybe this is like just a race thing. Like maybe they don't understand, or maybe this is the St. Tomian thing. If I was back in St. Croix, maybe they would have got it. Maybe in St. John, they would have understood. But I've got this magazine that says that people fly airplanes and it's possible. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how you can remember everything during those pivotal moments.
It's like a hypersensitivity. Like I remember what I was wearing and like everything about
it. And it changes your life.
It does. Oh, big pivotal moment. You're right. You're absolutely right, Brandon.
Yeah, I remember I was playing lacrosse in summer league. And I actually, ironically, I did not know that about you, but I actually repeated the first grade as well.
And you're dyslexic.
And I am dyslexic. I still can't spell. It's embarrassing. But now I just tell people, like, hey, if I get to the whiteboard and I can't spell, I'm not dumb. I just can't spell.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I remember, I can remember like you, I can remember the chalk on the sideline, and I saw this kid who his name's Derek Radeball, and I had heard that he was going to stay back and repeat his junior year. And I remember at that moment, I saw him on the hill. And at that moment I said, I am going to go to a new high school and I'm going to repeat my junior year because I just feel like that's what I want to do. I wasn't happy where I was. And honestly, Travis, the next day I drove to Boys Latin School in Maryland and they took me, and it honestly changed my life. But that moment, that like you're describing, I can actually remember that when I met my now wife, because I can remember her shoes. I can remember everything. So it must be. Do you think more people have these pivotal moments?
I think that I would assume that the vast majority of humans do. It's just, what do you do with it once you got it is the kind of decider.
Do you think it, well, I don't know about you, but there was not a doubt. Like I wasn't scared. Right?
No fear.
Right? It was just, that is what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I wonder, I'm interested to hear if other people have that, because these pivotal moments change I imagine that completely changed your life. Maybe you never go on to do 6 other things or meet 5 other people.
Yeah. 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 What did your wife say when you had that moment? What did she say then?
I didn't tell her I had the moment until later, but
what did she say? Did she have the same moment, or did she like,
that's a good question. Brandon? Maybe we should get her. I think she just came home from teaching dog school. That's a pretty good question. I'm going to ask her when she had her pivotal moment.
Yeah.
God, now you're like throwing down some deep stuff on here, Travis.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't be asking the question.
It's a great question. I'm going to ask her when she was excited. I told her, I said, I was doing the Peloton before, and we've got an old dog, and I couldn't feed him right away because I was taking a shower before I got in here. And I said, she's like, when are you interviewing that guy who founded HydroFlask? I was like, in 7 minutes. And I need you to feed the dog when I get home because I got to get on there. So I'm going to tell her that I'm going to figure that out, and I'll email you and tell you when that moment happens. So how long do you fly planes?
Oops, I just dropped my metal water bottle. I would say it was probably 7-8 years. I flew for the airlines. No, not that long. 5 years, about 5 years.
Why'd you quit?
I'd had enough, and I flew every single airplane that I had ever wanted to fly. The only one I didn't get to fly that I was a little bit bummed about was the DC-3, but it's a tail dragger, and I have not a fear, but a phobia, but not a phobia. It's like, I don't want to pay for a plane if it ground loops, and it flips over, and tail draggers have a tendency to flip over. And so that was one reason we had a DC-3 flying out of St. Thomas when I was flying in St. Thomas, but I didn't fly it because the mechanic who was supposed to be the airline mechanic turned out to be a car mechanic and was using like Kmart parts on the airplanes. And so he's like, hey, you want to go fly the DC-3? I'm like, not this week, maybe next week when we get a real mechanic. And then I never got that opportunity again. Yeah, I flew a bomber. I flew all kinds of jets.
So you were typed for jets?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, I have more time in jets than I do in anything else, which is kind of a rarity.
Yeah. Did you ever fly a Mall 7?
No malls. No.
That's what I learned on a Mall amphib.
Is it the one that has like a big bulbous nose and your feet are like in the water? Is it that one?
No, not that one. The mall's like a Cessna typical, what is it, 152 or whatever.
Okay.
Anybody who's a mall pilot out there will probably just kill me for what I just said, but it's a more of a simple plane like that.
Okay.
But it is slow. I mean, you know how it is with floats but I had so much fun. I used to scope fishing holes. That's why I learned to fly.
Where?
Well, I was fanatical about fishing for a really long time. And in the Chesapeake Bay in the winter, all the tributaries in the bay are crystal clear. So my friend had this Mall 7 and he was an instructor and I wanted to fly or whatever, but we would just fly at water level. I'm pretty low. And I would just mark all the places on the GPS in the winter. And then I would go back there when the fishing season started.
That's awesome. And those malls have fabric wings. Is that right?
Yeah, they actually do. It scared the crap out of me.
Yeah. And they would put dope on it and it smelled like bananas. I remember reading about the bush pilots up in Alaska in the malls. Oh. I had the option. It's like, do I go north and become a bush pilot or do I go south and become a warm water pilot? And I went south. But yeah, I do remember those malls. And they had really big flaps too. So you could drop the flaps and you could fly really slow and really big proportionate wings. And so you could really go slow.
We went really slow. I used to fly from Virginia Beach all the way up to there's a launch pad, I forget right now, where you can't go past government airspace, but we would fly the whole thing just really slow and you could just see incredible. I mean, you know how it is. You can see incredibly cool stuff. But do you still fly?
No. It's a conundrum. I mean, I used to fly charter jets. And then after my exit from the HF company, I chartered a couple planes myself here and there, but and they'd always let me sit up front when I charter. I mean, if you're paying for it and you ask, they'll let you, but I don't want to pay $150 an hour to go fly around Central Oregon, which I've done, for hundreds of hours. So I'm kind of cheap like that. And I don't want to quit smoking and I don't want to cut, smoking cannabis and I don't want to cut my beard and I don't want to get my medical back to go fly airplanes again.
That's fair. That makes sense. Yeah. I love it, but Half Moon Bay, fog, not instrument rated. What type of jets did you fly?
My lane was the Lear 35. That was the one I had.
That's a fast jet, right?
Oh, it was so cool. I remember so clearly the very first time I'd actually gone through flight safety in Orlando. I'd gone through all the training and all the tests and everything to become a Lear type rated pilot. And yet I'd never actually even seen one in real life, which I didn't, of course, tell anybody that, but we walk out of the tarmac and I've got my suit on, my epaulets, and here I am a pilot. And I didn't even know which jet we were going to. And because the sim doesn't look obviously like an actual Lear and the pictures in the book don't look like reality, but I have, I don't know, a couple thousand hours in Lears. Hawker. I had a guy who had a Hawker that I used to fly with.
That Hawker, What is that? That jet's dangerous, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's a big burly jet. It was like riding a bull. It was kind of like, whew, this is kind of fun, but kind of dangerous. And it was just kind of clunky. But then a Falcon was kind of similar.
Falcon 10?
Yep. And it was fast and it was cool. And it was like one of the first, and we got to go international with it too, which was.
You took a Falcon 10 international?
Yeah, I got to go down to, let's see, I went as far as Venezuela, I've been to Venezuela, a whole other story with pirates and stuff, but got to Venezuela and then I commercialed back and they went on to South Africa.
Yeah, I am a Falcon 10 fanatic only because I think it used to be the fastest commercial jet. I mean, passenger jet.
And it's the same size as a 707, which I always kind of got a kick out of. It's like people say, well, how big of planes did you fly? And I'd say, well, equivalency of a 707. And not everybody knows what a 707 is because they're a bit archaic now, but it's kind of fun to say that I flew something equivalent to a 7 something, right?
So I can't help but ask, when did you travel to Venezuela with pirates?
Well, I didn't travel with them, but when I was, we encountered them when I was probably 19. We had some Italians working at the dive shop, and they said, "Hey, we want to go down to this place called Los Roques or Marguerite Island, which is a really nice place to dive." So what they did is they chartered a boat out of the moorings in St. Thomas, in Tortola. So we chartered this catamaran, and I'm not a blowboat captain. I'm a power boat captain, but I do enjoy a little bit of hanging out on blowboats too. We bring it over to St. Croix. We just put all of the gear on it, and these 2 Italians took off to Los Roques. The Italians come in, they do their charter, and everybody left, including the 2 Italians. They took all of the money and they took everything, and they just left the boat down there. And the moorings is going, "Hey, you're on the hook for this boat. Like, you got to pay for it or get it back to us." "Well, it's in Venezuela." "What the hell is it doing in Venezuela? You weren't supposed to go to Venezuela." "Oh, no, we didn't say Venezuela. We said somewhere else." So Captain Casey, a boat captain out of St. Thomas, and I flew down to Caracas, and it was the first time I'd ever seen anybody with automatic weapons. Like, it was pretty intense. It was pretty cool. And that was a heck of a trip in Venezuela, but we should probably keep it under R-rated or R or no more. So it was a trip going to Venezuela. And my dad and his then girlfriend, now wife, came down to join us. And we, it was super sketchy. They're like, "Nope, you can't leave. The Italians completely screwed us over. Thousands of dollars and park fees and this fee." And they're just totally trying to get one over on us. So we're like, okay, we'll go through the system and we'll do the whole thing. And then we took off at like 2 a.m. and we just again, statute of limitations is over. We just took off, and we were on that first night, and we had 2 fast high-speed boats come up on us and circle us, and they were circling us. And so we turned off all the running lights. We turned off all the cabin lights. We had a flare gun, a baseball bat, and a machete. And my dad at that point, we had also smuggled a fair bit of Polar beer because we got Polar beer for super cheap. And so my dad was just completely drunk. He was wasted, passed out. His girlfriend, Suzanne, she was completely seasick, and so she was useless. So it was basically Captain Casey and I up on deck with a flare gun, a baseball bat, and a machete. And they would zoom in, and then they'd stop, and then they'd circle, and they'd float, and they'd zoom in, and then float. And they did that for about 5 hours. And it was one of the most terrifying experiences of 5 hours of my life. And what made me really scared is that Captain Casey was scared. I mean, he's this old pirate, he's this old boat captain, from back in the day. And to see him nervous about, and he told me, he's like, "Yeah, if they just dump us overboard and they show up in whatever port, they can say that they found it, and then they sell it, and that's how they make their money." I'm like, that's actually a pretty good, racket for them. but not great for us. Hopefully they'll put us in the dinghy and set us loose. And it's at that point we start looking for the dinghy and we realize we don't have a dinghy. So,
well, it was good for them, because if they went back to Venezuela, they were going to owe money on that boat anyway.
Wouldn't that be the ultimate karma?
Hey, you guys owe money. The government comes.
That would be a sad twist of ironic fate, wouldn't it?
That's crazy. So I guess they just were waiting for you to either jump off, give up, or something.
I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I do remember dawn came and they floated away sort of one last time, and we were just like, we were exhausted. It was,
I've been exhausted.
Bad. We put up the full sails and we just booked it right back. And we were surrounded by a pod of dolphins at that point. And so it was just kind of like, yeah, it was beautiful.
Positive energy around you.
Yeah, it lifted. The harshness lifted and that took over. It was awesome.
That's a cool story.
I haven't told that story before. That's good that you got that from me, Brandon.
They say I have a natural talent. My wife says that I just ask too many questions. She tells me I have to stop asking questions at 11. So then I do podcasts after 11.
There you go. Yeah, well, at least you got a schedule, a little bit of structure in your life. That's good. And a taskmaster to keep you on task too.
You got to adapt. So you quit being a pilot. Do you have a plan?
No, none whatsoever. I was living in Palm Beach, Florida, flying out of Fairwind Air Charter, Stuart, Florida. And they kept asking me to come in on my days off and fly. And I only had 2 days off a month. And I was living in hotels, eating in restaurants. And, being a pilot is a lot of fun. Flying fast. I mean, the first time I got in it and we did a short field, full flap. We were cleared up to like 25,000 feet. And we just went boom and just took right off just like a rocket ship. And it never really got better than that, And so every time after that was just switching the radio dials and, going through the motions, living in hotels. I met wonderful people, a lot of billionaires, a lot of celebrities, a lot of just really good down to earth people, a lot of scoundrels and crooks and people like that to boot. And I had a great time, but I had done that. The season was over. And so I said, I'm ready to go back to Oregon. And so I got upset with them one day when they asked me to come in. I'd been trying to book my day off. My mom was coming into town to visit and they called me in. And it's like, no, we're done here. We're done. I've been telling you I'm off this week and you're calling me in. You're not listening to what I need. So I moved back home to Oregon, to Bend, and started a fence company.
Did you save money?
No, gosh, no. Mm-mm.
You spent all the money you made?
I usually do.
Well, at least you're honest.
I've not been great with that. Like that, I probably could have picked up maybe some money skills had I been in college. I don't know. Maybe if my parents had taught me, maybe I would have learned. But I didn't really learn the money thing until sort of post-exit.
So you started a fence company.
Yeah, my girlfriend at the time, we were just sitting on the couch contemplating, okay, now we're here. What do we do? We had, probably about 2 or 3 months to live financially. And some guy just showed up in our backyard. We just moved into this rental house. And I was like, I guess I'll go see what he's here for. And he was there to put up a fence. And they were doing just beautiful work. It was clear cedar, no knots. It was just gorgeous, beautiful wood. And there were a lot of subdivisions going up. Californians were opening up the Northern Territory. And I said, well, are you doing all these subdivisions? And he goes, no, we just do 1 and 2 at a time, just real small. I said, well, do you want to do those subdivisions? And he says, no, we just want to keep it small. I said, okay, well, then I'm going to do that. How hard could it be? He just laughed. He's like, have fun with that, Travis. And I walked into the house. I said, we're doing fencing. And she said, okay. And so we bought 2 trucks, 2 trailers. We went up to Portland. We figured out, like, what do you do to, build a fence? And we started a fence company.
Did you run any numbers and figure out how profitable it could be or anything like that?
No.
Were you worried about that?
No, I had no money. So I wasn't worried about not making money.
I know,
if I was
but
going to go back to zero, it's like back to just today, But like that, what I mean, like I was at scratch, and so if we went forward and then it turned out back at scratch, then it would have been a net, zero almost. I wouldn't have seen that as a loss.
Well, that's definitely a way to look at it, but it worked out.
So we did really well, and ended up selling it and made. That was my first time I made 6 figures. It's like, whoa, that's pretty cool. But what happened was 11 months in, it was a winter month. It was one of the harshest winters on been record in, 800 years or whatever the numbers are. And I said, I've had enough. I got to get out of here. I've got to go somewhere warm. I'm tired of this. It was really hard in the winter. So I took off to Oahu, and as soon as the door opened on the plane, I could just feel the aloha. And I called my partner and I said, listen, you can either keep the company or you can sell it. But either way, I live in Oahu now. And she said, Travis, where are you? Who are those people in the background? Are you drunk? Are you at the bar? What are you doing? I used to drink back then. It's like, no, I'm still on the airplane. I can feel the aloha. It's real. I live here. And I was in Oahu for like 9 days, like a long ass vacation to be in Waikiki, almost too long, really. Came home. We sold the company within a week because, again, everything was going up in the building sector, and moved to Maui and then moved on over to Oahu.
And was that a pivotal moment, like picking up the magazine?
It was, yeah. And it was kind of a hybrid of all of the best of all worlds, because I really enjoyed the Virgin Islands, but the Virgin Islands can be, it can be very difficult. It can be a very difficult place to have a business and stay safe. We had friends killed, raped, robbed on the regular. And I love the Virgin Islands, and I don't want anybody to not go there for what I've just said, because it is a great place when it's a great place. But Oahu and the Hawaiian Islands were more American, but still paradise. And so it felt like a nice hybrid where we could actually do business with business people, and we could also live in the tropics.
Yeah, I watch the Waikiki Surfline cam on a regular basis.
I can't watch that because I live here now, and I can't go do that right now because I've got a daughter until she's 18. I'm here in Deschutes County.
Were you surfing?
Mm-hmm.
So you surfed those waves in Waikiki?
Well, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not the big ones. I mean, I had a longboard. I wasn't like, wasn't a little, rocket.
Those are like gorgeous waves. I look at that all the time. I was actually talking about it the other day. But how long do you stay in? So do you get a job in Hawaii?
Well, so originally I went over to Maui and then to become a business broker. And the business broker I went to go work with tried to sell me the company the first day I got there. And it's like, whoa, hold on, dude. Like, I'm here to learn business brokering from you. And he's, well, I'm selling it. I'm getting out of here. You should buy it. So I don't want to do that. So we moved to Oahu, and I started out as getting my real estate license to become a business broker, to broker business deals. And I didn't really like the guy, and I didn't really want to work for him, and I didn't really want to work for anybody. And so in the interim, I took a job selling, there was a fancy title like exotic luxury pre-owned vehicles like Mercedes and BMW and Ferrari. And I was horrible at it because I knew the mechanics of the pretty car was not that great. And I didn't actually, my heart wasn't in it. I didn't want to sell something I didn't believe in. So I did that for like a month. I was like, nah, I can't be a used car salesman. I know too much about the car to, look somebody in the eye and give them a, shake their hand and take their money. So somehow it hit me. I guess this was another one of those cerebellum moments. Signs, for some reason, there was a lot of sign shops. I kept hearing everybody has a sign shop in Oahu, and everybody had a plotter that would cut vinyl, and then they'd take the vinyl and they'd weed it, and they'd take that and they'd transfer it and they'd put it on the vinyl and they'd say, beautiful banner, and I've got a sign shop. And so it's kind of like, okay, well, if everybody else has got a sign shop, let me take a stab at it and see how well I could do it. And so my girlfriend at that time, she and I went to Florida to a sign show convention, SGIA, I think it was called. And we just said, hey, how much does it cost to start a sign company? They're like, well, what do you need? And we're like, well, I don't know. Well, you tell me. Well, you've been in the sign industry for years. What do you need? I have not been in the sign industry for years or ever, but I know I hear the word plotter. And so I know I need a plotter. And they're like, oh boy. So, I mean, they saw us coming, obviously, and they sold us a whole sign shop. We went back to Oahu, opened up Oahu Signs and Screen Printing right there in Waikiki, Honolulu area, and had a lot of fun with it.
Again, didn't really do a plan. You just you just believed that there was demand in the market.
And that we could do better than the market.
That you could build a better product.
Better mousetrap, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, just by getting a digital printer, we were already ahead of the game.
And it worked.
It did, until my brother ran it into a wall. We were moving it from this room to that room, and he hit the printer on a wall, and it broke this little hairline fracture in this plastic part on the roller tracks that printed. And so when it would get warm, they would expand and the whole thing would go, and it just mess up the whole entire 12-foot banner, and it would have to start over. And so we'd be there till 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And I didn't know that it was a hairline fracture in the rollers until the day we sold it. And I was like, I looked down, I see that hairline fracture. It's a 25-cent part, and it cost like tens of thousands of dollars of, just redoing stuff. But when you asked if it worked, did you mean the printing company?
I did, but it's interesting that the printer didn't work too.
Yeah.
But did the sign company work?
It did. Yeah. And we learned a lot. I mean, I learned a lot about, Photoshop, printing banners, printing, brochures and business cards, and, working with agencies. We worked with a lot of the top agencies and just learned so much about marketing and graphic design in general, and just built up a really big, RGB versus CMYK and the whole side of business that I did not get at the fence company. I picked up at the sign company. And then one day I just had this kind of like sinking, sick feeling. And I said, it's all over, it's done. And we didn't quite know what that meant. And it was the economy had just crashed in the States. We had the 08, what happened in 08. And at that time, I was in Honolulu. I was thirsty. I went into a sporting goods store to buy a water bottle, and there were no water bottles on the shelf. And I said, what happened? And the guy said, well, we pulled them because there might be this thing in plastic. We're not real sure what it is, but it might not be good. And I said, well, who's going to fill up this shelf? There's this huge wall, and all the shelves were empty. There were only 3 bottles left, and the whole wall was just empty. So, well, who's going to do this? He goes, nobody. There's nobody to do this. Cerebellum. I will. I'll do this. And the guy laughed. But in the time that I said I will, and he laughed, which was just a millisecond, I saw the future. I had a vision of me standing up on the stage talking about these water bottles. And a decade or so later, I'm in UCLA, and I was standing there talking, and I had this like, oh, Jesus, like a whole deja vu almost moment.
So did you sell the print shop at that? Did you come back from that and say, hey, print shop's over, we're selling this, we're going to build water bottles?
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I didn't tell the employees just like that, but I asked one of the employees, I said, hey, water bottles. What do we do? And she says, aluminum. There's this one brand. It starts with an S. It's awesome. It's like, okay, great. Maybe I'm not doing water bottles. I went and bought that S branded water bottle from the local Patagooch, and it was awesome. It had a great texture. It's just beautiful. It just felt really cool. But then I drink out of it, and it was like the orifice was just too small, and I couldn't get ice cubes in it. And I dropped it. It dented. The gold stuff on the inside had flaked off. And I was thinking about when I lived in Australia, I read this article about people have parakeets in their kitchen and they're dying from the Teflon toxicity. And I'm thinking, is this Teflon in my water bottle? And where did it go? Did I just ingest Teflon? So I called the company. I asked them, I'm like, what's this gold stuff? And they're like, no, we're not going to talk about that. We're not. Get out of here, kid. You're bugging us.
So I do want to come back to this moment, but you did mention that you lived in Australia. And I have to ask, like, where in the story did you go to Australia?
So I kept going back and forth, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. Croix, St. Thomas. And finally I was like, when I was in third grade, when I was in third grade, I'd heard this story about, Crocodile Dundee had come out. And one of the fourth graders, he was a bully. I don't remember his name, or else I'd definitely call him out. He had his grandma come in to share a story of being in Australia. And I remember in fourth grade or third grade, it was a fourth grade split. He was in fourth, I was in third, but we were together in the same classroom. I was like, I'm going. I live in Australia. I'm going to Australia. And so I just put all of my effort into getting to Australia, and showed up when I was probably about 20 and lived there for a year.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to fill that chapter in because you got all this stuff so you did Australia, but we're not going to even go into that. We're going to come back to this water bottle, because I do remember I actually have. So I have all HydroFlasks right here. I got like all these HydroFlasks, but it didn't start with them. It started with whatever that company is you're saying, and they dented. I'm not beating up on them, because the reason that they were in the early days, that's all that we had. And they had some cool designs, candidly.
Totally.
But they do rust.
Yep.
And I remember I actually have the orange one that I used to keep everywhere. And I looked in there, I was like, that was like rust.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, should I be drinking that? And I was like, I didn't see that. And I just kept going.
Yeah.
So how do you
remember that Pantone orange? I remember that very vividly. I know exactly which bottle you have.
Yeah, I have it. I have it upstairs. I kept it mainly, Travis, because it was, for me, was the thing that I had across my journey from like that point as an entrepreneur. So I look back at that when I was like sleeping on floors in a sleeping bag, and it's that thing that you just, I don't want to say that thing keeps me grounded, but it does keep me remembering that it wasn't always that I had 5 HydroFlasks, a desk that goes up and down, an ocean view. Like, it wasn't always like that.
Concrete roots.
So how do you, so you have basically these water bottles that were cool, but they didn't function right. How do you figure out, I actually don't even know how you design this. Well, what do you do now? Well, first, did you sell the shop, give the shop away, or how's that work?
Well, so we were very, very fortunate that there was a loophole in the contract that we, after the economy hit in the state, on the mainland, not the States is when I was in the Virgin Islands. In Hawaii, this is called the mainland because Hawaii is a state. So in the mainland, the economy had crashed, but it took a minute to get out to Hawaii because everybody had purchased ahead of time last 6 months, last year, their forward planning vacations. So when that started to all kind of come down, we were fortunate enough to get out of our lease and walk away from it. And we basically had a fire sale. and sold off, the printer to a guy who was, he would kind of source from us, and he was just a good friend. So we sold him basically all the kit.
And you sell all this and stay in Hawaii and decide that you're going to build water bottles.
Yeah. Yeah.
How's that go?
Tough. It was rough. It was a hard time.
How do you, I mean, in order to do this, I don't know where they're made. I assume that you tried to go to China. Like, did you even understand that? Or did you, I mean, it's a tough sourcing things. I know with Alibaba and everything, it gets easier. Apparently, but even it's hard. I studied in China, back in early days, and doing business remotely and understanding what's going on, especially with that. So what do you draw this thing on a piece of paper? What do you do?
That's pretty dang close to accurate. That's what I did. There at the sign company, we worked with a guy, one of our clients or customers was a guy who would do sort of like business field trips to the Canton Fair. Back in the olden days, it was called the Canton Fair. I can't remember what we call it nowadays. But it was basically where all of the factories come together under one roof, and they set up a stall and they say, hey, we're the best factory on the planet for doing this and that and the other. And this guy had a remote control vehicle shop in Oahu. And we knew this guy, and he's going, hey, yeah, just go to China and get whatever you want made at these factories, and it's just great. And so I talked to him. I was like, well, what about a water bottle? He's like, no, nobody's doing water bottles. I'm like, well, there's got to be somebody doing water bottles. He's like, well, let me check. He checked. He came back. He's nobody's doing water bottles. Okay, well, I know that there's at least one company, because there was a metal water bottle, single wall bottle, that is down in your neck of the woods in California, who was making bottles out of China. So can we find that factory? Found that factory, and they're like, no, we don't do that. I'm like, okay, well, what do we do? And so it was difficult, because there was no Alibaba. Google was not really a thing that I was really super proficient in, and it wasn't as nearly as robust, let alone in a communist country at that time. And it was about a 1.5 year search, and finally found somebody who said, yeah, I'm willing to take a shot and see if it's going to work. And the double wall vacuum insulated sports water bottle could potentially work. So we sold everything we had. We sold the sign shop. We sold our cutlery. We sold our, every piece of furniture we had. We ended up with a suitcase each and about $11,000. And we ordered 3,000 MOQ, minimum order quantity, of double wall vacuum insulated bottles.
So I just want to go to the technology. How do you understand, double walled vacuum sealed technology? How do you learn or do something to figure out that that's going to keep water cold and hot for a prolonged period of time?
Well, so in between the aluminum bottle and HydroFlask, I talked to my brother who was living here in Bend, and REI had just opened up. He was working at REI. And I asked him, I'm like, well, what do you know about water bottles? And he says, yeah, there's this company. It's a single wall. It starts with a KK, and you should get one and you're going to love it. And so I got one, and I liked it for the fact that I could put my ice cubes in it, but that was about as far as it went. We'd go out, surf, come back, and it was so hot, couldn't even drink it. The lip was weird, and it dribbled, and I wasn't a real big fan. And I remembered that my grandpa had an old school thermos that had glass on the inside, metal on the outside. And even in the Virgin Islands, I had plastic on the inside and metal on the outside that kept my drinks a little bit colder, a little bit longer. And so my first thought was, well, we'll just do plastic inside and metal on the outside. But then BPA started to kind of get a little bit of a worse and worse rap. And so I was like, okay, we're doing stainless on the inside and stainless on the outside. And I just kind of told the factory that that's what we were doing. And I don't know. I just said it was going to be, and they just made it happen. They took a chance and said, because in Japan, they were making like very small little ones for like milk and things. And so I was like, well, let's just take those and make them bigger. And so then I started traveling to China and going to the factories. And there was only a couple of vacuum insulation factories at that time. And we found one that said yes.
And so you drew it and you understood somewhat of the technology, but did they help you create this because you had something of reference?
Kind of, yeah, yeah. I mean, I just drew sort of like a rough outline. I did do a lot of research on Oahu about different mouth sizes. I bought every single, pop bottle, beer bottle, juice bottle, every bottle on the island. I owned at least one or two, and I would just take sips from it, and I'd mark, okay, well, this is cool, this is not cool. I like this, I don't like that. Too big, too small, and so I kind of came up with the mouth size and then drew the bottle out from the mouth size. And that's how it's and then they had an engineer who was working there at the factory, and I got to work with the engineer.
So you basically clean out your bank account and you order 3,000 bottles. Did you, and I imagine, I don't even know, did HydroFlask have a box that they came in packaging, or was it just attached? I don't remember.
We had a belly band, which is just wrapped around. It said, it's a little piece of real estate where we got to say what it was that we did, which was kind of fun because nobody else was doing it. So, got to come up with how do you come up with a copy for something that has never existed really before, which was, I really got a kick out of that.
How'd that come to you?
Well, I just put, pictures of mountains and cold and snowflakes and desert hot on the other side, and it keeps hot and keeps cold and 24 and 12 hours. And that's how it kind of started. And then it refined over the years as we picked up, better and better talent and graphic designers and things.
What's the logo? This is the logo, right?
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
What's that? Did you do that?
That's the newer one. I came up with one that was very similar to it. The first one was a wave. The first 3,000 bottles was a wave because we were living in Hawaii. And then we hired this big hotshot fancy marketing company, and, huge, stupid 6-figure contract to come up with the logo and branding. And they weren't doing anything for us. And one day they came in with a bunch of logos, and I didn't like any of them. One was okay, kind of, not really, but sort of okay. But at the bottom of the page, it said 99 designs. And I thought, I wonder what that means. And so we said, okay, well, we're going to think about it. Thanks, bye. And I typed in 99 designs on the computer web, and it showed me what that was. And I was like, oh, you sons of guns. And so I was like, you guys are done. You're out. And they're like, well, $280,000 and we'll go towards the exit. And I opened up they brought in their top brass. The attorneys come in, the HR woman, for whatever reason, she came in. She was just a bulldog, I guess. That's why they had her there. All the top brass comes in. We have a meeting, very serious, big contract. I opened up the contract and I hadn't signed it. I was just like, we're done. We're done here. And so they're like, oh, you just go ahead and sign that there, and we'll just go ahead and finish it for you. And my partner picks up her pen. I reached over, took the pen from her. I said, nope, leave. And they did. And then so I just sketched it out. And then saving all of that money, I was able to hire the first graphic designer in-house. And her name was Alice Drobina. She's just awesome. She's from the Czech Republic. And Alice and I just doodled on paper and napkins, and I would brainstorm, and she would create, and she would brainstorm, and I would create. And we had a lot of fun.
Was it just a happy person?
Yeah. Just little water spouts coming out. And it's after I left, they ran it over with a steamroller to make it flattened, because, corporate branding has to be flat, and it has to be very bold and very stout. You can't have wispy little lines because it doesn't show up on billboards, which I understand.
So how do you, going back to this, because this is like really important stuff, because we sort of jumped a little bit, but how do you sell all 3,000 of these things? And how do you even sell them?
Excuse me. Well, so back up to that. What happened was we ordered 3,000, but we ran out of money. And we moved back to Bend and moved in with my mom, and we had no money. Excuse me. So we said, well, can you please just send us 1,500? and he says, sure, because even those 1,500 are not going to sell. The guy in China at the factory. I said, what do you mean? He goes, nobody wants a double wall vacuum insulated water bottle. They were only drinking out of aluminum and single wall and maybe stainless, but nobody's ever going to buy them. So whatever, sure. I said, you know what? You let me sell them. You just keep making them. I'm going to sell some more. And it was kind of like the challenge was on.
And so where do you go to sell them?
We went up to Portland to the Saturday market under the Burnside Bridge. And it was a really, really hot summer day. And we were told that, no, we couldn't sell water at the market. And we said, no, we have a water bottle. And her name was, it doesn't matter her name. I can't remember right now, but she said, no, you can't do that. You can't sell water. This guy's selling water and he sells elephant ears. Best elephant ears on the planet, by the way, Portland Saturday market. But I convinced her that, no, it's just a metal bottle. We're not selling water. She goes, okay, you know what? We don't have room for you. Just go out by the train tracks and you can put up a table out there. Oh, sweet. Awesome. I'll take it. And so we stood out next to the train tracks with a little Rubbermaid table. And from the sign company, we knew about branding and printing. So we had a table throw, which is different from a tablecloth. And, we knew all that stuff. And we had little brochures and flyers. And I literally just filled it up with ice and put a piece of duct tape on it and wrote Friday, 7 p.m. And Saturday at 10 a.m., I'd force the bottle into people walking by his hands, and they'd look in it and they'd look at me like, what are you doing? They'd look inside and there's ice inside of it. And they go, whoa, whoa. And they'd look at the duct tape and say Friday night before, and they'd go, how does that happen? Is that magic? It is. And for $20, you can buy some magic. And they would. And so what happened, what was her name? Was it Rona? I can't remember her name, but we ended up having a line that went around the corner to buy the HydroFlasks, and it went past her office. And she kept getting upset because she couldn't go in and out of her office because the line would go past it. And so she'd come out and, you can't keep doing this. Well, you said we could, And so the third weekend we were there, she finally gave us a booth.
Oh, well, that was nice of her.
It was awesome. Yeah. And then people would only come to get the HydroFlasks, and they would buy other things. And so we were her favorite. And I even got free elephant ears sometimes.
Oh, well, that was nice of her.
I like elephant ears.
So how long are you thinking at retail, or what are you thinking? You're selling on the Saturday market, the country market, what is it called? Farm market?
Portland Saturday market. It was Saturday and Sunday. It's a little bit of a misnomer.
So what do you say, hey, we're going to put these in retail stores?
Well, that was always sort of the goal, but we didn't have any real clear channel or way that we'd planned out to get there. But it was definitely something that was on the books. We just didn't know. It was in the hopper, but we didn't know what that meant. And we were in Bend, where we were headquartered out of my mom's house and her shed, and signed up for the Munchin Music on Thursdays. And we set up a little booth to be a vendor at this little fair thing in the park, in Drake Park. And a guy came up. Well, okay, so first somebody came up and said, hey, I'm from the Bend Bulletin newspaper. Can we do an article? Like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever. So we were in the newspaper as a new startup business. It was a slow day, I guess. And then the following week, somebody came up and said, hey, I saw you in the newspaper. I was like, oh, hey, we're famous. This is great. We're really starting to take off here. And he said, I'm a sales rep, and I'd like to sell your bottles. And I said, okay, what does that mean? What does that look like? Because I had no clue. I had no idea what a sales rep was. I'd never dealt with a sales rep before. I didn't know how retail worked. And he said, well, I need 12 bottles and I'll go out and sell them into the retail stores. And I said, well, we only had like maybe 200 left. So giving him 12 for free was a really big leap of faith. I didn't know if we'd ever see him or those bottles again. And I said, okay, you come, meet me tomorrow and I'll give you the 12 bottles, like if you're serious, then I'll know. And sure enough, I met him the next day and gave him the 12 bottles. And I literally just wrote them off. We're never going to see him again. But then that made me realize that maybe we could get these into retail stores. And my mom's neighbor, Trudy, owns Mountain Supply, which is a mountain outdoor outdoor gear store here in Bend. And Trudy said, yeah, bring me some bottles. So Trudy started selling into retail, which we thought was awesome. We were going to really make it because of Trudy. And so it was really great that she took the risk on us. But then the sales rep calls and says, how many bottles do you have left? We're like, well, X number, 200, 300. He goes, those are all mine. And I need another 2,000. We got, 15 little micro stores around the Northwest. So we faxed China and said, hey, can we get that other 1,500? Ended up selling them. People do want them. And so they sent the 1,500 pretty quick because they were ready to go. And by the time those 1,500 reached our place, we had already sold like 3,000. And so we ordered 20,000. And so we went 15, 20,000.
How, and I assume your margins were good.
Yes, they were, but our overhead was pretty huge. Like we had to get out of my mom's shed pretty darn quick. We started out in my grandparents' garage in Salem, and we had to get out of there and move to my mom's shed, had to get out of there. So we took on first we started out with 5,000 square foot lease and started with that, outgrew that really quickly when the 20,000 came in. Then we had another 5,000 square feet. And, the margins were good, but we were completely bootstrapping 100% of the money.
Yeah. When you ordered 20,000, was he giving you, I'm just for people listening out there, right? Because everybody tries to figure this out. Was he extending you terms or were you paying up front?
Oh no, it's all cash up front. Yeah, no, it was 50% up front and then 50% when it ships. And it was, a water bottle is what, $5.50, but you times that by 20,000 and that adds up pretty quick, especially when you're trying to bootstrap.
So what were you doing? Like, how are you getting that money?
We started out friends and family, credit cards, personal debt. We started out like that. And bootstrapping, but it just started to snowball so quickly, which is something that people don't talk about too much. Is businesses, the common misnomer is that, well, if you don't get enough sales, you go out of business. The other side of that, I guess that's not a misnomer because it's true, but the other flip side of that is you get too many sales, you could also go out of business. And so that was the kind of the line that we walked quite regularly. And then we ended up having a 40,000 piece order that we ordered, and it showed up and it was rusted and non-insulated. And that really, really set us back. And that got us to the point where we had to go out and look for, I was going to put air quotes around angels, but I'll just instead say VCs.
So did you have to eat that order? Cost, the cost?
The worst part about that 40,000 was there was a number of just like, in hindsight, good things, but at the time it was just horrible. As soon as I found out, so I'd been in China for about a month and I got the flu du jour, the pig or swine or whatever it was, SARS or whatever it was called at that time. So I spent the majority of that month in the hospital. I'd go to the factory all morning. And I'd start at, like 7 and I'd get done at like 5. And then I'd get done at the factory and they'd take me back. They'd drop me off at the hospital. And then I'd check myself in the hospital from like 7 until 2 in the morning. And then I'd go over to my hotel and try to sleep for a little bit. And then they'd pick me up and I'd do it all again. And it was dreadful. I came home from that trip and showed up to the 40,000 bottles. And as soon as I saw that it was rusted, I was on the next plane and right back over and found out what had happened, explained how we were not in a good space and that, the future of the company really hinged on this. And so I was able to talk the manufacturer into extending net 90 or net 120. And after it reached, not from takeoff point, but after we get them point. And so I thought I was sitting fat and happy. We thought everything was good. And I get back to Bend from that trip, and I get called into the bank, and our banker says, "You don't have any more money." I said, "Well, yeah, I know. It's okay, because we got 40,000 water bottles though, so we're good. We're going to sell those. We'll pay you. We're all good." She goes, "Oh, okay. Well, as long as you have those 40,000, you guys should be fine." I said, "Oh, yeah, we're good." I didn't tell her about the rest. I go back to the headquarters. This is my first morning back out of being in the Chinese hospitals. And there was nobody there in the warehouse. My partner was gone. We had an employee. She was gone. We had about 20, 25 day laborers checking all the bottles. They were all gone. And I didn't know what had happened. I was hungry. I went over to the drawer to get the cash to go get some food. And I get this like Dear John letter. And my partner said, "No, it got too hard. I took off back to Hawaii." And then I get another, I get open up the email, and I get an email from the employee that, basically she's gone and she took the money. She stole the money, the cash, and she paid the day laborers like pennies on the dollars and said, "Hey, Travis isn't paying you what he owes you, but he wants you to take this, penance and kick rocks, take off. Sorry, it's Travis, not me." I had no idea she was doing it. She kept the money.
So you made this comment. I made a note to ask you. So this is the comment that you made earlier in the conversation when you said you had millions taken from you.
That was later. That was post.
Oh, well, let's hear that. But so what? Wasn't this your girlfriend?
Yeah.
So did you guys get like mad? She get mad at you?
No, I had no idea. I had no clue. I literally walked in. I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, she's probably in the back." "Oh, okay. Well, she's probably in the back," because we had the female employee, and they're in the back. They weren't in the back.
I mean, I'll say this because we are men. I don't think that we're always that smart or aware, but were you at all, was there like any red flag? Like, "Hey, Travis, get your rear back here out of China." Like
No. It was all hunky dory. It was all great. It was all really, really good. Well, not great. I mean, we had 40,000 bloody rusted bottles, but as far as I knew, everything was.
Did you ever speak to, have you talked to her since? Like, "Hey, what made you take off?"
Oh, she said it just was too hard. Yeah, it was too difficult. Yeah.
Did she think to call you and be like, "Hey, come"?
I didn't realize. I didn't.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. But it didn't keep you down.
No. I think the worst part was that like everybody in the back was gone, and I was sitting on a 10,000 square foot 5-year lease. I'd just been at the bank. There's no money. I know my wallet has no money in it, and if it's if I did, it was RMB, and I can't exchange RMB for food. And went to the cash drawer, and when that cash was gone, it was kind of it was one of those sinking feelings, like, okay, what do I do? And I was hungry. And so I just took a couple of the good bottles, and I went next door to Frank at Country Catering. And I was like, "Frank, you want to trade bottles for food?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, let's totally do that." So I got a sandwich and a Mountain Dew, and I was back on my feet again.
So what did you do?
Well, so I put an ad on Craigslist that I needed help at HydroFlask, and I got a response. The very first response was somebody who said, "I do marketing, I do secretarial things, I do sales, I do this and graphic design and that." I said, "Come in, let's go." And she showed up that same day. I explained where we were, and she says, "All right, here we go." I said, "All right, here we go." And I called my family. My family came over and helped start checking insulated versus non-insulated, rust versus non-rust. And we just started selling bottles to get by. And then and then we get the call that the money was due on those 40,000 coming across. They did not want to extend the line of credit. And that was really tough because, 40,000 times $5 easy numbers is what, 250?
Yeah, 250 grand. So
it was like, okay, well, I don't have 250 grand. So I had to go out and get the outsiders to come in.
So how'd that? So now you're in raising money mode, in crisis mode to raise the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, rocking a hard spot. Huh?
How'd that work out?
The first one went okay. It was the straight interest. How much do you need? Here's the interest rate. Bob's your uncle. Off to the races. Cool. And then, but we just kept going so much. It was like 40,000 that lasted us 4 months was now lasting 3 months, and then it lasted 2 months, and then we'd get another one, and it only lasted a month, and then we needed 40,000 for here and 40,000 for there, and it pretty soon got up to be quite a bit. And in that time, once the money came back in, she came back. She showed up, and but we were running so thin. We had her car got repossessed, our garbage cans got repossessed from our house. We were running really thin.
So how did you raise money? I know there's a sort of a crazy story, right? Some guy shows up and some guy says he can raise money or something.
Well, he showed up and he says, I got a call from the front, because we ended up getting to the point where we had an employee up front, and she called and said, "Hey, Travis, there's this guy here who wants to see you." And I thought, oh, he's just a debt collector. He's just here to repossess something. I don't want to see him, no way. And I said, send him away. And she called back and says, no, he's here for a job. I said, well, tell him we're not hiring. And she called back later and says, he's not leaving. He wants to talk to you. I'm like, oh, Christ. Okay. So I went forward and met with him, and he says, hey, I want to work here. And I said, well, and I didn't tell him we were closing, but this was on a Wednesday, and I was getting ready to close on Friday, and just completely shut down. There was no more money, couldn't pay the employees, and
you were done in your head.
Done. But I didn't want to tell him that. So I just said, I'm sorry, we're not hiring. I work here now. You don't. And we went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And finally he goes, okay, why? Like, tell me the truth. I said, let's tell you the truth. We are closing on Friday. He says, well, why? I said, well, because we need money. He goes, how much do you need? I said, $1 million. And he goes, okay, so if I get you $1 million by Monday, or by Friday, can I show up on Monday? Yeah, sure, dude. Let's do that. Goes, oh.
Yeah, let's do that.
He kind of skips off, and I thought, well, that guy's crazy. And sure enough, I write the letter, I'm so sorry, folks, we got to let you go, and we're closing down, and I'm getting ready to skip town, and I don't know what I was going to do next. And Friday morning, this guy shows up, and same thing. It was like, Travis, this guy's here to see you. Well, who is it? I don't know. He just says he has a meeting with you. What time? 10 o'clock. Who is he? I don't know. I go in and, what are you doing here? He goes, I want to hear about this business. And told him, and he goes, well, what do you need? And my partner says, we need $882,642.79. I said, besides all that, I need to sell water bottles. And he goes, how much do you want? I said, $1 million. And he goes, all right. And he pulled out his checkbook, and he wrote a check, and he handed it to me. And I was like, sure. Okay. Gosh. Yeah, that's great. Thanks, pal. But we took it to the bank, and the bank said, okay, yeah. I said, what do you mean? Yeah. And she goes, yeah, he's definitely got enough to cover this check. Okay, well, put it through as quick as you can.
Did you negotiate there's a lot of things that happen here in a normal deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like say you can have 20% for $1 million? Do you do any of that?
That was never my forte. At that time, I wasn't into the numbers whatsoever. That was her area of expertise. She went to business school, therefore she knew how to do the numbers. And so what they arranged, I think, was an interest only at the first million.
Oh, wow.
But then like the very next month, we needed another million. And then the very next month, we needed another 2 million, and so that's when the equity started flying. And then eventually he bought her out and she got to take off back to Hawaii with one of the employees. And yeah.
What a ride. And then eventually, so she leaves again, this time with one of your employees.
Yeah.
Do you, and then at some point, this thing's growing, you're raising money. She leaves. Are you worried that you don't understand how to do the equity, or at this point you have a lawyer?
Well, no, I was not worried. And I had a really good IP attorney, but not a really good business attorney. I had in fact, I'd love to say his name's Carl, but I won't. He was awful. He was absolutely awful. He did a horrible job of a lot of things, but I didn't really at that time understand the whole corporate side of business. The sign company and the fence company was like, I know the Better Business Bureau meetings, and I know what is the Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce, yeah.
I know those kind of things, and I know how to work a crowd, and I know how to network, and I know how to sell, and I knew that business. But when it came to the corporate side of things, I had no clue. I still to this day don't do spreadsheets. And so I surround myself with people who do spreadsheets now, but back then there was none of that.
So what made you get to the point where you said, I've had enough. I want to sell this? Because I think that was 2012 or 2013, if I remember right.
Yeah, my brother had just died, and I just got married to a British woman, and I was ready to go live in England and go travel the planet and just be retired. And my time was up. The season was over, and I pretty much, I got into REI. We had sales reps who got us into REI, but we got into REI, we got the NBA, we got the military, we had all of the big retail stores, and we'd really spread out, and we were all over the place. And I was in Paris at the Louvre, and I saw HydroFlask. And that was always kind of the benchmark of success, was when we saw a HydroFlask on the far side of the world. Okay, we made it. And I had that moment. And I remember, this woman had a pink one, and I went up and I asked her, I'm like, where did you get that? And she picked it up and she goes, this is mine. This is my HydroFlask. This is mine. Because she loved it so much. And I said, well, that's interesting because I'm the owner. And she goes, no, you're not. It's mine. I said, no, I own the company. And she called her husband over, and her husband started to cry.
Oh.
Met the owner, and I was like, I'm done. And we left the Louvre, got in the train, and I got this text message from the home headquarters, and I was like, this is a stupid question. You guys are asking me just stupid questions. Like, you know how to answer that. You're big kids. Take care of business while I'm gone. If I can't even leave for my honeymoon, this is awful. I'm just ready to go. I just saw the bottle and I was done. I returned and said, I'm out.
You sparked something. So when you said you got into the military, my wife and I sometimes have people who get out of the military. They come to our house and we let them live with us if they're transitioning or doing a course. A lot of them go to some courses up here in Northern California. And we had this guy, I won't say his last name, but amazing guy, worked for an elite Army unit. And he had lived with us for a month, and we had just had a ton of fun. But when he retired out of North Carolina, he had come to Bend, Oregon. Mm-hmm. And he said, we were using these. This is the actual bottle that he gave me. And it was he said, there's a bunch of hippies making these bottles, in Bend, Oregon that not a lot of people know about. And in the special forces, we're using them and they work.
Yeah.
And he gave my wife and I one, he gave us some other really nice, cool things. And that was actually, this is my first HydroFlask. And, you know, I was like, God, what? I think I'm innovative. Like, why aren't I on the forefront of this? Like, what the hell? I'm using this stupid aluminum bottle that's rusted. And so that was that you sparked that. So how do you sell the company?
Well, so, okay. So real quick on that, the hippies making the bottles, we didn't actually make them in Bend. That was always a misnomer. We've always been made in China, but I always marketed and put out there without breaking the law. We worked right on that fine line of made in China was marked, and you could have seen it had you been looking in the right place when you bought the bottle, but we didn't stamp it on the outside. So there's always been a big couple of things that I've heard over the years. The big one is that we were made in Bend until I sold, then it went to China. Always have been made in China. All of the water bottles have always been made in China. There's no American made metal, stainless steel, double wall vacuum insulated bottles made in China, anywhere else besides China. The other big misnomer is that she left, she took half, and she started a company that sounds like 50-50, which is not true. She did not. She did steal bottles. She did start selling bottles in the Hawaiian, at the Oahu swap meet, but that did not go anywhere. So those are two big misnomers that just aren't true. She was never my wife, therefore she never took half of the money and did that.
Well, I appreciate you setting that record straight. It's sort of like I actually did it too, Travis, is designed in California, made in China, the Apple thing. But, you know, these are all technicalities that matter for the rules. And I understand all those like you do. But at the end of the day, like, you know, it was a cool thing. There's a bunch of hippies making these water bottles that stay hot and cold, and damn if it didn't work. I mean,
yeah,
it does work. It's actually incredible. And then when he bought that one, I went out and like bought 10 of them because they work. But going back to you selling it, did you put an ad on Craigslist? I mean, I maybe you did. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I did. So what happened was when she was bought out, it was kind of one of those, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm staying, you know, like the company was still so new in its infancy when she was bought out that there was a long ways to go, and they really incentivized me to stay. So they started really taking, you know, the investor started taking care of me to keep me in.
Were you 50-50?
We were equal ownership at that point until we started taking on more and more investment. And then it started, you know, oh, it's just 1%. It's just 5%. It's just 10%. And then when she bolted for the umpteenth time and he bought her out, he's like, well, hey, do you have this much money to pay half of buying her out? I don't have any money. I don't even have a car at this time because she just took my truck, let alone that much money to give her half of what you're buying, you know, we're buying her for. And so he says, oh, I'll cover it. Don't you worry. Don't
worry. I'll take that equity.
Yep. And so he did. And that put me at 49%. And 49% is when I only jokingly half say that the forklift came in and dropped off the corporate playbook. And I look at this playbook that was 8,000 pages long, and he says, you stay here another 4 years, we're going to make it well worth your while. Look at these numbers. This is what we're going to give you, and this is what we're going to do. And I opened up the book and I looked at it, and the first page, I couldn't get past it. I said, no, this doesn't set well with my heart. This isn't who I am. This is my baby. Like, don't, you know, yeah.
So at that point they bought you out too?
At that point, it was very easy to buy me out, especially with an incompetent Carl. Yeah. I hope he's listening.
I'm only laughing, Travis, because I've been down that road and I got some scars on my back, maybe my arm, a few scrapes on my head that are covered over by hair.
Yeah. For real.
tough lessons, but you, at that point, I can't imagine that you didn't, I mean, HydroFlask was relatively successful. I think the reason I remember it so well was because that is around the time that I sold my first company. And I mean, I'm just a business nut. I'm a geek. I don't know what you call me, but I really just like all of that stuff. And I had heard about your story, and I remember I was like, oh, well, the HydroFlask guy sold, and I think you were around 12 or 13 million in revenue at that point.
At least.
So I was like, oh, well, he probably made some coin, and I can't imagine you didn't make enough money to at least go buy your truck back, right?
I did. I bought a bigger truck, actually. And a trailer to go with it.
Now you could buy a Cybertruck, the Tesla Cybertruck one.
I would like one of those. I think that'll be really neat. And if nothing else, just to be like, you know what? Screw you. I have one of those. Yeah, I know you may not like it, or you may love it, you may hate it, but either way, I've got one.
My friend has 3 reservations because he hit the button 3 times. So he said he would give me one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, $100. But I actually am going to get a Tesla. But so I want to go back to this because I know how I felt when I sold my first company. And I had a very similar journey to you in this. It was probably a little longer. I started in 1996 and sold it, I think, in 2012 or 2013. And it was a bittersweet thing for me. I remember exactly where I was. And I was scared to death that it wasn't going to happen, because that for me, as I'm sure for you, it was the most amount of money that I had. First of all, I had nothing like you. And I was like, so my bank account's going to go from like $1,500 to what?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you're going to wire it, right? I cost myself like $10,000 because I bought insurance for the escrow, because I was so scared, Travis. Like, I really was. And the irony of it was that I had used that money to start a new company, and I was sleeping on a friend's floor in a sleeping bag with no bed. Mm. And I remember I was like, are you sending it? We're sending it. It's gone through. I was like, I don't see it. I don't see it. And then it popped up, and I was like, and it was, I don't know that I was happier than, I don't want to say happier than ever, right? Because that's sort of really definitive, but I don't know, happy. I was satisfied, but I was also a piece of me like, oh, I'm not the guy anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you feel?
That I had that same sort of, I tapped out on a Thursday. Friday, where's the money? Where's the money? Are you sure? Is this real? Did I just get taken? Monday, where's the money? Where's the money? Tuesday, it hit. And Wednesday, I got a credit card in the mail. And it was heavy. It was metal. It's like, oh, this is cool. I never knew such things existed. And I called to activate it and go through the activation process. And I said, okay, well, what's the limit? And the guy says, I can hear him going, I don't see one. Like, no, like, was it say like $5,000? Like, how much can I spend on this? Because I'd had credit cards, but I'd maxed them out to buy water bottles. And he's like, I don't see a limit. I'm like, okay, so hypothetically, let's just role play here. I'm going to Florida tomorrow to go buy a yacht. The yacht costs, let's just say $1 million. I can use this credit card? Yeah, just give us a little bit of heads up. Are you doing that tomorrow? I might. And that's when it kind of hit me like, okay, yeah, the money's in the bank. Luckily, my banker cut up that card and he's like, no, you do not get an unlimited bank account. No, Travis, no. But that was in like, I think it was like in April. And September, I very really remember waking up one morning, not the HydroFlask guy anymore. It took 6 months for me to realize that I'm okay with not being that person anymore. And even though I haven't been going to the office for 6 months, it was the first time I really realized that that's not mine anymore. That's them. Those kids are on their own now. Go and, go with God, guys. Vayos con Dios, mis amigos. Yeah.
So what have you been doing since? What happened? Who stole millions of dollars from you?
I don't know that I should say Merrill Lynch. Can I say Merrill Lynch on the air?
Oh, I don't. I mean, this is a Brandon C. White Build a Business podcast. I think you can say anything you want.
I would avoid Merrill Lynch if I was a listener. Yeah. It was just one of those things. I found some property and I was like, I'm going to go pay cash for it. Went in and they said, yeah, sure, no problem. And they gave me the cash to buy the property, and they decided they wanted to keep a fair bit on the side as well. So, yeah, that was rough.
Well, since then, I imagine you've learned a little bit about spreadsheets or filled that. What I say is, don't try to learn. I mean, you should learn it, right? But always fill your gaps with somebody who's stronger.
Right. Absolutely. And that was one of those just like, it was just a screw you, we took your money thing. And so I think that I didn't really learn much about, it's not like I went out and did, hookers and blow. Like, that's not how I lost. I didn't buy land, like I didn't lose it to helicopter, and I didn't buy anything with the letter G in it. I guess I could cover a lot of different categories, but like a G5, G6, didn't buy anything like that. They just took it. But yeah, absolutely. Since then, I've definitely learned that you need to get, and I knew the guy. That was the thing that hurt me the worst, is I built the guy's fence. And back when he was working at Bank of America, and, he was kind of like this old grandfatherly figure. And, I just really trusted him with my money, and I got divorced, and that divorce was very, clear. It was, she got that, I got that, no worries, everything's good. And then a couple months later, it's like, nope, we took your money anyway. So
that's crazy. Well, hopefully you have enough now. It looks like you're doing okay. You haven't done a business. I mean, you do have a business, which I do want to talk about because I think it's super important. I get a lot of people who write me and students that I've had about sourcing in China, and there's a million lessons in that. You can go really wrong. I mean, you can go broke. Candidly, which if you don't do that, and I think it's gotten, I don't want to say it's gotten worse, but it's gotten the Chinese market, they become smarter in the sense that they know they can have these agents, and you don't know if you're really talking to the factory or the only way you're talking to the factory, in my experience, is if you show up and you drive to the factory.
And even then, it's still not guaranteed. I've been to a lot of factories. I mean, I was in China probably 3 times last year just by March until no more. And yeah, I mean, I've shown up before where, do you work for the factory? Yes. Oh, yeah, I work for the factory. Are you a sourcing company? Are you an agent? Who are you? No. Well, both. I'm a sales agent, and I also have a trading company, and I also work for the factory. Okay. Do you have an office at the factory? Yes. Do you have a desk at the factory? Yes. Show up, and where's your desk? This one. That's not your husband on there, is it, John? No, this is somebody else borrows this desk. Ha ha ha. That's not your desk, John. You don't work here. Yeah, it happens. There's a lot of scams, but at the same time, China does a hell of a good job at manufacturing. There's a lot of good people. I've met so many dear friends over the years, and I've met a lot of scam artists. Some of them hail from the United States of America, and they're not all Chinese. Some of them are American living in China. Those scam artists will steal from you just as fast, if not faster. So
yeah. So now you haven't built any more. Have you built? I guess I should ask you. Because I don't know. Have you built any more products like the HydroFlask, or thought about that?
I have. I'm kind of not building my own brands anymore or businesses. I really take pleasure from helping other people build. I really enjoy the building process. Once it gets up to a plateaued place, I just kind of start to lose interest. And so I really enjoy that initial startup and being through it as many times as I have personally. And then now that I've been doing, consulting, therapy, business coaching for so long, I've been through hundreds and hundreds of startups. And I really enjoy that building phase, but I enjoy doing it for other people and letting them go out and be that CEO, that person on the stage. I kind of sit back, and right now I've got a bunch of property that I actually really enjoy chainsawing juniper trees, and I've got a 4-year-old daughter and I enjoy doing that. And so I just work with people that I really like. And I'm at the point where I'm fortunate enough from all facets to say no to people that I don't want to work with. So I'm actually in a very happy, sweet spot.
What is chainsawing juniper trees, like cutting them down or trimming them, just out of curiosity?
Well, both. I bonsai them, but typically I drop them because they are a non-native species. They suck up a lot of water, and there are a lot of shade for the ponderosa that could and should be growing, which are the native species, and just a lot more beautiful.
Yeah, chainsawing is actually pretty fun, isn't it?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. If I'm not flying a jet or riding a motorcycle or jumping out of an airplane, the chainsaw is the most dangerous way for me to focus and the most, economical way. I mean, it's really not that expensive once you buy a couple of them.
You actually get I don't think, if you haven't chainsawed and you're listening, like, it's a real workout.
Oh man, it is. I mean, you're constantly up and down and up and down. And then, a lot of people will cut them by the book. They'll cut a wedge and then they'll cut, and then they know that they're going to fall that way, or they know where it's going to fall. But I cut them flat because it's a heck of a lot faster. And then I let it come down and I try to move out of the way to see, which way. Again, they just kind of like talk to me. They just are like, we're going to fall that way. Okay. So I'm going to stand over here. 9 times out of 10, they do. 99% of the time they do.
I sometimes do that, and then when I think that blade's going to get caught, I just hit it on the backside once, and
yeah.
Now you work with people who are doing businesses or starting with an idea, and how do you charge them equity? Like, what is your economics on how and Travis, how does someone even get in? Well, I can tell them how to get in touch with you, but I'm not going to do that because I don't know if you want an inundation of on that channel from there. But how does that work?
Well, yeah. So that was one of the, I'd never been a consultant before. I didn't know how to charge. I didn't know what to provide. I didn't know. And I had a kind of a hang up on that for a couple of years, where it's like, what do I charge? What do I do? And so now I've put it together over the last couple of years, and it's going fairly swimmingly. I typically charge per month, and I say that we can get most things accomplished within about 4 months, from the back of the napkin drawing to delivery into your third-party logistics, or fulfillment by Amazon or your garage or wherever you're going to get it. Of course, there's engineering and there's design files that we need to get that we can obtain. And then once we have that, we're off to the races. And so I charge per month for about 4 months. If after the 4 months, it's a company that I'm interested in and they're interested still in working with me, because like I say, I get along with most people, but I'm at the point where I say no to people. But if we've both said yes, and we get through the 4 months and everything's going well, then we start to talk about equity and those rules.
And are you focused on people who want a physical, product, or is it also clothing, or do you care?
Yeah, I have factories all over the place, and I work with a really great team out of India. We've got factories in Vietnam and a few other countries. And here in America, that's a whole show. We could talk about American manufacturing, and right now, American factories, how that's going to manufacture.
Is that coming back, by the way?
It is, but not as quick as we had thought or wanted to. We were on a really good trajectory for, dare I say, 3 years. We were doing really well bringing it back to America. And then the last 2 years have been, even the last, is it okay to say the last 3 months have been less and less American?
Why do you think? I mean, candidly, it's important for people to understand. Well, why do you think? Do you think it's that we were back in the keep it in America, and the tariffs and things like that, and the things like that have been lifted, so now it's wide open again?
I do. I think the tariffs had a big part of it. I mean, when people are paying 20 to 25 additional points overnight for what they had been doing yesterday, they want to get out and go do else, whether it be another country or another business altogether. But the tariffs really gave us a lot of initiative to open up American factories. As the coronavirus persisted, the American labor force was staying home collecting unemployment versus going into work. And the Chinese factories were open and they were cranking out products. So I personally tried to buy an American-made trailer for my property. And the guy said, no, we're backed up 6 months. So, why? Because you can't bring them in from China? He goes, no, they're made here in America. I said, okay, well then why aren't we making trailers? He says, because they're sitting at home eating pizza on welfare and collecting unemployment because they don't want to go into work because they're making more money collecting unemployment than they were working at the trailer factory. I said, okay, well then I know people who are making trailers right now in China. He's like, yeah, you should probably go do that. And so it's like,
well, I think it's important because you are truth on the ground, whether it's political or not. It doesn't, candidly, for me as business people, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we can't source things here now. So you're going to go to China, and if you're going to go to China, then you got, truthfully, I can't overemphasize this to listeners out there. If you don't have someone that knows what they're doing and has been in the landscape and candidly is trusted.
Right. Trust is 100%, if not 99.99% of it. And I've been fortunate enough that the people that the factories I work with, I've known them for long enough that they know my standards of quality. They also know that, this order might only be $10,000 for them or $100,000 for them. And if they go and knock this off, there's no more dollars after that. But if they take this 10,000 and they do right and they do the best that they can, there's going to be another $150,000 coming to them. And so I have a very tight knit group of factories that I know the owners. I work directly with the owners. There's no sales agent. There's no middleman. And it's my Rolodex of my trusted, friends. They're really my friends.
I think that's really important. Well, I want to thank you for taking your afternoon. I could talk to you for 6 more hours probably on a whole host of things. Anything from pirates in Venezuela. Los Rocos actually has very good bone fishing.
Yes, yeah. And so does Bonaire, the flats there. Yeah,
it does. And the park there, which gets abused, I should say, from that to flying planes. But I think we'll definitely hook up again. Before we go, 2 things. First thing is, do you have 3 HPTs for entrepreneurs who are listening out there who either not just even starting a company, for sure, if you're starting a company, but even have a product and they need to scale it?
I did not go to MBA.
I know. I want a non-MBA answer from you.
I don't know what HPA is.
Oh, wow. It's not an MBA. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I should probably explain that. So HPT is a high percentage tip that I made up from high percentage spot that was the fishing spot. So you'd say, well, where do you want to go today? You'd say, oh, take me to an HPS. And I'd be like, okay, well, we'll go there because we'll probably catch fish. So I made it up. Sorry. Yeah, HPT is a high percentage tip.
I'm sorry. I would say that if you get a calling to do something, do it, because it will be hard and it will get harder, and unseen forces will come to your aid. And if it really needs to be out there, do it. I think that would be one, is that we do need entrepreneurs. And so if you get that calling, please do. I would say that number two would be that if I can do it and if I can figure it out, I don't like to say that everybody could, but I would say a high percentage of people could probably go out and do every bit as much, if not more, than I have. And then my third one, I would say that for the younger listeners, the rest of life can happen later, but live life now. If you can go and travel, go and travel. If you can take those exotic, far off, remote jobs on the far side of the world, go do that. Worry about life later. Kids, family, all of that later. I think those would be my three.
I think those are three awesome tips for everybody. And to wrap things up, how do people get in touch with you who have, well, actually, I lied. We're going to do two more things. One is, what is the sweet spot of the people you can help? And then the last thing is, how do they get in touch with you?
Okay, yeah. Sweet spot is people who are funded. I am not funding businesses. I did not walk away with $200 million. That was not Travis, who has that in his bank account.
I'm laughing, but it's important, right?
It is. I had people come and try to kidnap me, honestly.
What?
Yeah, that's a whole nother. We really do. I want to talk to you about your rowing and your biking too. So I really do want to talk to you more, Brandon. I would say funded companies that have an idea. Maybe you're not a company, but if you have time to invest and you have money to invest, and it's not outrageously expensive, but I will say, sort of standard numbers are $75,000 to $100,000 to start a business. You don't need it all up front, but over the next year or so, you'll need about $100,000. Friends, family, beg, borrow, steal, angels, however you get it. And what was the question? Did I
Yeah, no, that was I'm just trying to look for your sweet spot of the customer. So you got to basically be funded, or you got to be willing to put 75 to 100 to work if you have a product that's how you can help them.
Exactly. Right. And can you do it for cheaper? You could go through Alibaba, and I would not recommend that to anybody. Like, I would not want anybody I know to go through that. There's a lot of good on Alibaba. There are a lot of good factories that I've seen on there, but there's a very large percentage of them will perhaps not give you what you're paying for. And like you said, you can go broke doing things like that. I also seem to work with women really well. Female entrepreneurs are also kind of my jam. I don't know why. I guess I really prefer women to be around and spend my time with. And we seem to get along really well. Yeah.
Well, you seem really easy to get along with.
I am now, more so. Yeah. But I'm really driven. I'm really focused, and I really, I want the best for all of my clients. And so I am a little bit of a taskmaster. It's like, hey, what are the 3 Pantones we're doing? I don't know. Well, we're not moving forward until you get me those 3 Pantones. Well, what then we talk about Pantones for 8 hours, and we have a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Right. And then how does someone get in touch with you who fits this?
I have a company called the Tumalo Group. So Travis, TUMALOGROUP.com, Travis at TumaloGroup.com. Send me an email. Instagram is probably a really good way to get a hold of me. I shy away from social media. But
I actually didn't find you on Instagram. So can you give us your URL one more time?
We're connected now anyway. Travis at TUMALOGROUP.com.
Perfect. We'll put that in the show notes. And hey man, let's do this again. It was It was a lot of fun. I'm really grateful for you sharing, being open and sharing the true story. That's really wonderful, and people really can learn a lot from that. So I'm grateful for that.
Oh, Brandon, I'm like I said earlier, like you ride around in my truck with me all the time. I'm listening to you and I listen to these awesome stories. And I was like, how am I going to compete with this guy who's telling this awesome story about starting this multi-quadrillion dollar company, 15 different businesses? I'm like, yeah, it's just great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. So we'll catch up on the channel that I know where to grab you, and have a great rest of the week, man. And thanks again.
Thank you, Brandon. Take care and be well. Bye.